Have you ever woken up one morning, stepped out onto your front lawn with a fresh cup of coffee in hand, and wondered why your grass looked like it had just survived a tropical monsoon? That was me, 3 weeks ago. The entire yard was drenched. Puddles glistened across the soil like miniature lakes. The ground squished underfoot, and oddly enough, my garden hose was slightly warm, as if it had been recently used. Now, I live alone. No kids. No roommates, and certainly no garden gnomes sneaking midnight irrigation for their hidden subterranean villages. Just me, my coffee, and apparently a lawn that had decided to water itself. At first, I thought maybe I'd left the hose on by mistake. Maybe the automatic sprinkler system was malfunctioning. But then I remembered I didn't even have a sprinkler system, just the one hose. And that's when the weirdness started to escalate. The spike. The next clue was my water bill. It hadn't just increased, it had skyrocketed. We're talking swimming pool filling levels of consumption. But there was no pool, no fountain, no elaborate koi pond with water lilies and frogs croaking in harmony. There was only me, a neglected tomato plant, and an old rusted-out barbecue grill sitting quietly in the corner of my yard. So where was all the water going? Curious and a little creeped out, I started asking around. My neighbors were friendly enough. Most of them waved from their driveways and made polite small talk. Except for one. Her name was Cheryl. And yes, her name really was Cheryl. Queen Cheryl of Maple Drive. Cheryl had moved into the house across the street about 3 months ago, and from the moment she unpacked her last box, she acted like Maple Drive was her kingdom. Clipboard in hand, she strutted around the cul-de-sac like she was the president of the HOA. Except she wasn't. Not officially. You wouldn't know it, though, watching her enforce imaginary neighborhood regulations. She filed complaints about the shade of another neighbor's shutters. Too teal, she said. She demanded that one family trim their bushes lower because they obstructed the aesthetic flow of the street. She even chastised the mailman for parking too aggressively in front of her mailbox. But as much as Cheryl was a certified menace, I didn't think she'd stoop to theft. At least not until I saw it. Caught red-handed. It was a Saturday morning. I had just returned from the grocery store, the back seat of my car still loaded with bags. As I pulled into my driveway, there she was. Cheryl, in a floral blouse, oversized sun hat, and bright white sneakers, dragging my hose across my lawn as if it were hers. She didn't look sneaky. She didn't even pretend to hide it. She hauled that hose over to her driveway, hooked it up to a portable pressure washer, and started spraying down her front steps. No shame, no permission, no apology. I sat in my car, dumbfounded, keys still in the ignition. She looked up, noticed me staring, and gave me the kind of cheerful wave you'd give an old friend at a cookout. "Hope you don't mind," she called out. "Just a quick rinse." And then she turned back around and kept spraying. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe for a second. Was I supposed to get out and confront her? Yell? Demand an explanation? Instead, I chose the coward's route. I went inside, sat at my kitchen counter, and stared at my sink like it had betrayed me. Later that afternoon, I gathered my courage and knocked on Cheryl's door. I smiled. Polite. Neighborly. "Hey, Cheryl," I began. "Noticed you were using my hose earlier. Everything all right with your water line?" She laughed like I just told the funniest joke in the world. "Oh no, I just like your hose better. The water pressure is incredible. Figured it's all community property anyway, right?" Community property? I nearly choked on my own tongue. I explained as calmly as I could that no, this wasn't a commune. It was my property, my hose, and my water bill. I politely asked her not to use it without permission. She tilted her head, smiled sweetly, and said, "Well, I'm sure the hose doesn't mind. We're supposed to be neighborly." And with that, she shut the door. Taking the high road, sort of. I'm not the confrontational type. I don't yell. I don't pick fights. I solve problems. So, I went through the proper channels. I emailed the HOA, sent them pictures, attached my water bill as proof. I asked for clarification on this so-called community property rule. A few days later, I got a polite but useless reply. "We encourage all neighbors to resolve minor disputes amicably without HOA intervention." Translation: Deal with it yourself. So I did. I bought a hose lock. Nothing fancy. Just a simple metal lock you clamp onto the spigot. Cheryl couldn't use what she couldn't access. Problem solved. Or so I thought. The very next morning, the lock was gone. Not unlocked. Gone. Clean cut through like someone took a bolt cutter to it. I stared at the sliced metal in disbelief, half expecting to hear the dulcet tones of law, order playing in the distance. Across the street, Cheryl was at it again, using my hose, washing her SUV this time, like she was filming a car commercial. Water arcing through the air like we lived beside Niagara Falls. I walked over, asked her more firmly this time about the lock. She shrugged. Oh, that old thing? It was a safety hazard. Someone could trip. And then she flipped her hair and went back to scrubbing her tires. When nice doesn't work, that's when I installed the camera. It wasn't obvious, just a small, motion-activated camera tucked beneath the gutter near the spigot. If I couldn't stop her, I could at least document her. 2 days later, I had footage. Crystal clear. Cheryl creeping into my yard like a cartoon villain, dragging the hose away with the same smug expression she always wore. She watered her plants, filled up a kiddie pool, and even washed her dog. All before I woke up. I uploaded a clip to the neighborhood forum with the title, "Neighbor Steals My Water Every Morning." The post exploded. People laughed. People were outraged. Some offered advice. One guy even sent me a link to a motion-triggered sprinkler that sprayed intruders. But the best part? Cheryl saw it. The next morning, she knocked on my door. No sun hat. No smite. Just pure rage. "You're violating my privacy," she snapped. "Threatening my reputation." I told her she was stealing my water and threatening my bank account. She crossed her arms and said the dumbest thing I've ever heard. "Do something about it. I dare you." The dare. And that was it. The moment everything changed. The next morning, I woke up with a new mission. Cheryl had dared me to act. So I would. But revenge requires planning. First, I stayed home from work to observe. Sure enough, around 10:30 a.m., Cheryl showed up. Same routine. Same smug grin. This time, I didn't say anything. Just watched. Filmed. Waited. Later that afternoon, I uploaded the footage again. This time under the title, "Local Cheryl Turns Neighbor's Hose into Personal Water Park." The post went viral. Again. And Cheryl noticed. Again. Revenge served cold and gross. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The idea came to me when I passed a construction site. They had a temporary sewage tank parked out front. Industrial grade. The kind they use for portable toilets. I struck up a conversation with one of the workers. Slipped him a little cash to let me access the tank for an evening. He didn't ask questions. That night, I rigged the hose. Ran an underground line to the tank. Made sure everything looked normal from the outside. But when someone turned on the hose, let's just say the water wasn't exactly potable. The next morning, Cheryl took the bait. She hooked my hose to her new rotating sprinkler, turned the spigot, and was greeted by a jet of thick, brown, putrid liquid. Her lawn, her patio, her white wicker furniture, all of it covered. She screamed. Loud. Neighbors poked their heads out. Someone filmed. It was glorious. The aftermath. The HOA finally took notice. Cheryl filed complaints, of course. Accused me of biological warfare. But I had footage. Proof. Witnesses. The board reviewed everything. Fined Cheryl for trespassing. And just like that, her reign of terror ended. Cheryl moved out a month later. Sold the house to a young couple who brought me cookies on their first day. And me? I started a blog. Shared the story. People sent me their own Karen or Cheryl stories. I even designed a few t-shirts. But the best part? My mornings are quiet again. The tomato plant's doing fine. And the hose? It's retired. Deservedly so.